Hello! We all have those special movies from our childhoods that we hold near and dear to our hearts. And for this 1985 classic, it ranks very high on the list in that category. So in this video, we're going to be checking out as many filming locations as we can for this fun-filled adventure that began right here at the jail turned Oregon Film Museum. Oh yeah, we're gonna put the tour in Astoria. Wrote that one myself. Let's go. Cue the music. The Goonies. Looking closely, you should begin to see some differences between the bars, along with some other differences that have been made over the years. It was really cool just to enter this building. The highlight of the visiting experience, of course, is to be inside that jail cell, Jake Fratelli's jail cell, where this classic starts. I mean, that was pretty wild. Donner and Company decided to use an anamorphic lens for this one, which has somewhat of a distorted appearance you may begin to notice here. Now this style lens offers a wider field of view. Why choose this style lens for this film? Well, consider the cast. There's a group of kids in almost every scene. It also offers a very nice cinematic quality as well. Mama Fratelli. Mama Fratelli's favorite son would have been outlining the front parking lot here with gasoline during this famed introduction jailbreak and high-speed chase with the police scene. Filming began back in October of 1984 and took about 5 months to complete. Spielberg and Donner shot the movie in sequential order. This was done to ensure that the momentum of the young cast would remain in sync with the progression of the movie. Now, I know the Goonies filming locations have been done to death, but Goonies...
Never say die.
1985, what a year in film, huh? Back in 2010, for the 25th anniversary of the Goonies' original release date, the mayor at the time of Astoria, Willis Van Duzen, declared June 7th to be officially recognized as Goonies Day. The town now hosts an annual celebration on this day in honor of the famed film. The festivities include outdoor screenings, filming location tours, games, events, and sometimes even members of the cast and crew show up. It's really cool. Wow, that is one tough mother. Who wouldn't snack on the go in this situation? And the chase is on! Most of the city offers picturesque sweeping views of the Columbia River, and while it is a scenic waterfront town, it is not a resort community. This is why so many filmmakers have been attracted to this area and used it in their films over the years. Astoria was founded in 1811, making it the first American settlement west of the Rocky Mountains and thereby the oldest. J.J. Astor, for which the town is named after, actually never set foot in the area, but he is responsible for establishing the fur trading post at the mouth of the Columbia River. Mouth, no pun intended. And the rest is history. Now, it may not be 1632, but it is pretty old.
Try the victory pyramid! Okay, so, alright.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think at one time this was the exact location of John Warren Field. It was named after the legendary high school football coach and Oregon native. What happened was Columbia Memorial Hospital wanted to expand, and this location was basically their only real option. In order for Columbia Memorial Hospital to acquire the land for its expansion, they had to relocate the field. And at the new site, they built a brand new athletic complex. The project ended up costing them $5 million. Now, funny enough, the Goonies house is also basically right up the street here. You go up 37th until you can't go anymore, make a left on Duane, and make a left on 38th, and there you have it. So right here is where Rosalita would have desperately tried to cross the street. Poor lady getting caught up in the high-speed chase. Also, where Martha Plimpton is crabbing on the dock, as the chase is going on behind her, right behind me, as a matter of fact, is where that is located. See some changes over the years. Clark Mouth Devereaux. Yep, that's his full name. Son of Mr. Devereaux, who's actually the DP in this movie. His name is Nick McLean. They actually filmed inside this house as well. Now, when Mouth bangs the top of the TV, he's actually right in front of this window. And where you see the chase continuing behind him is actually the street right here. Two deer. Astoria is awesome, by the way. And you see the smaller window behind the sink right here. Another interesting bit of information here is that Nick McLean was also the DP on another 80s classic shot in Astoria. Goes by the name of Short Circuit. Well, this is the dock where Martha Plimpton would have had her head underwater and she would have popped up as the chase went on right behind her. As you can see, it makes no sense for there to be a chase out here on this pier anyway, because there's no way they could have made it out here. It's not connected to the street on the other side. It's just dock and pier. But movie magic often plays a role, and it did here. But unfortunately, this road is closed. Okay, I think we've seen enough here. Moving on. I couldn't find the exact location for where this was filmed, but it was most likely down by the piers in an industrial section of the town. The bicycle, the stereo, the sneakers all look pretty good, but if they're not a reproduction, they're basically lookalikes. I mean, look, a lot of those actual screen-used items from one of the biggest movies to come out of the 80s, I mean, you're talking about serious money. This is basically a glorified Halloween costume. You know, it's a nice reproduction. You know, it has the bullet belt, which Data repurposed to hold his batteries. It has the device above it, you know, 007 printed on there. Aside from being able to see where the movie began, the Oregon Film Museum really didn't have too much to offer, in all honesty. I mean, I wasn't expecting too much, so I wasn't really disappointed, but I was a little underwhelmed by the experience. The main thing I enjoyed about that experience was being able to see exactly where the movie started, you know, inside the jail cell and inside that historic building. That was really cool. So here's where Chunk would have been playing a video game. I was so fixated on getting the right shot into frame that I really didn't get a good enough glimpse of the visitor's location map here right on the left side. Way to go, Nick. And you want to hear something funny? My wife and I actually have a travel destination map. My effort was for naught anyhow, because the level of the floor has changed and the window has changed, and there is now a partition right here on the left side where the maps are pinned to. Now basically Jeff Cohen was one and done as far as acting goes, but he would go on to become a very popular Hollywood attorney
He co-founded a law firm and has several big-name actors and actresses as clients. What entertainer would not want Chunk as their lawyer? I gotta say, I had a really good time visiting this exact spot and being inside this building here where he was looking out of as the chase went right on by.
I was trying to figure out what kind of camera it was.
Oh, it's a ZV-1 Sony?
Yeah, Sony.
Yeah, it's a good
I was
one.
sitting there going, I thought it was a Sony, but I wasn't sure.
Very cool. Thanks again, guys. Have a good one. So then, of course, there's the shot through the glass where the pizza gets smushed up against the window, and we know what happens with that milkshake. Oh dear.
Cannon Beach is a very pretty area. I look forward to revisiting this spot in the future. And it's about a 45-minute ride from Astoria, which would have ultimately had to make this the highest speed chase ever caught on record for them to arrive here this quickly from where they just were. Movie magic playing a role as usual. That large rock formation right there has been dubbed Haystack Rock, I guess because it's in the shape of a haystack. Right here is the spot where the Fratellis pulled off. The well-executed escape. And would have drove off.
Blending in perfectly to the third annual motor rally, which would have been happening right here.
During this famed truffle shuffle scene, if you look closely enough, or if you actually pause the movie, you could see some scars, some chickenpox scars on his stomach. Jeff Cohen was afraid to tell people about his condition because he knew he would most likely be removed from the cast. You could once again see what I'm talking about as far as the lens is concerned. There are two reasons why I can't fit the entire scene here into frame. There's now a fence and a driveway separating the properties, which would not allow me to stand farther back and get everything into frame. And then two, what I already brought up earlier, is the lens that was used for this particular movie. You see the name right there, Rube G? That's there to reference the American cartoonist Rube Goldberg. His cartoons would depict devices that perform the most simple tasks in the most ridiculously unnecessary ways. Now, Reuben Goldberg was a bit of an inventor himself, but his cartoon illustrations would depict impractical inventions that would never work in reality. It would only work on paper. Now, right there is where Data's platform would have been, right outside the window. As I'm sure many of you already know, he had the great experience of working with Spielberg a year earlier on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And he goes ziplining across with a crash landing right inside. And interesting enough, they did film inside here. It usually cuts to studio for the interior of a home. It's almost always the exterior only, but sometimes they do use the inside of the house as well, or another house. For whatever reason, they don't like the inside or they can't access the inside of that house, but maybe they'll use one right across the street or something like that. It all depends. A cool fact is they did not shoot the attic scene at the house. I mean, that would have been difficult to pull off. See when Brandon comes up first? When he's walking up the stairwell and where the wall is right behind him? Whoops. It's now in reverse. You see, for that to occur that way, where the attic door is situated in the house, it doesn't match up. And you could also see right around the edge, it's a little sloppily peeled up and it doesn't exactly fit well. I mean, it's supposed to be just used for a quick scene. They match up the wallpaper. You're not really supposed to be focusing on this. This is just me analyzing this scene and deducing that it's not the actual attic, that they filmed this back in Burbank. In this scene here, where Aston is telling his friends all about One-Eyed Willy, it was basically improv. Donner wanted to get a natural, offbeat, childlike story out of his young actor, and I'd say his technique worked well. One of the more endearing and memorable scenes happened right here on this porch between the brothers. The inevitable is sinking in, and all hope appears to be lost. And there was no way I was leaving without setting foot on this porch. Don't worry, it was okay. Relax. If you are ever in town and intend on visiting, do not drive up the street. It wasn't until 2015, for the 5th anniversary of Goonies Day, when the owner, Sandy Preston, basically had enough. She was getting anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 visitors a day. I get it, buyer beware, the whole nine, but you gotta feel for her there a little bit. I don't think she was anticipating that many visitors. I don't think anybody would be. So unfortunately, she was forced to take the extreme measure of tarping her whole house. It didn't last very long, thankfully. She started speaking with the city council and other people in the mayor's office, and they worked out a solution for the problem. You know, everyone's excited, of course, to visit this famed location, and the last thing the owner wanted to do was deny anyone access. But unfortunately, again, people make errors in excess of visitation, and, you know, people make errors in not thinking the purchase of the home completely through. Walk up the street, get the full experience, take it all in, relax, stay a while, not too long. You know, there's a donation box there. It's not there for its health, so drop a couple of bucks in. I donated a little bit more generously because there was no way I was going to go to this house and not take pictures on the porch. But if you want to step on the porch, you know, drop a few extra dollars in. You know, be considerate, be respectful, and the homeowners won't have a problem.
And the house they're referring to here is very conveniently right across the street, right there. So here's where Mikey, Data, Mouth, and Chunk would have rode their bikes down the street.
Hi, Mikey.
Who was taking the flag down right there. It's like an old Victorian from a more grand time. Look at that. Still the same. Amazing.
Josh Brolin made his movie debut here, And while it was no surprise Sean Astin would go on to become a pretty big actor in Hollywood, it was a bit of a surprise that Brolin did as well. Interesting enough, both actors are the sons of actors. Now, Ecola State Park is another very beautiful area to visit. And there's one long, windy road that you have to take to get to the point area, which is where the Fratelli hideout was located.
You'd give me a Twinkie. Now I'm gonna be late for dinner. My mom's gonna get...
Looks like the spot right here where Brandon was ridden off the road on what wasn't his bicycle.
Focus on those two trees right there in the frame. You see that? When you look at the branches and everything else that corresponds with this location, you will begin to see it matches up, even though the angle is a little off. Production designer Michael Riva thought the map itself didn't look dated enough. So to make it look more than 300 years old, he spent one afternoon aging it. He poured some coffee onto it, and then he wanted to add some blood. But the prop department was out of paint. So what he did was he cut his own finger and dripped blood along the edges. Sean Astin was, by everything I researched and gathered, was allowed to take the map back home, and the mother didn't know what it was. And oh my goodness, she threw it out. My father's mother, my grandmother, she threw out 3 Mickey Mantle rookie cards. 3. Yep. Not to mention his entire collection that would probably forget about it, how much it's worth. Even how different the value is of baseball cards by today. Lou Gehrig?
The weather tracks what it was like during production, that's for sure. You know, it was a different season.
Turn off your brain, all right? Someone probably dropped the pot.
Yeah,
they just dropped the pot. Are you sure, Mikey? Because if you're sure, I'm sure, you know.
So the hideout would have had to have been situated right here.
Because it's just because of pots, because they might try to kill us.
It was just the exterior that was constructed for the film. When they went inside, that was all done in studio back in Los Angeles.
Okay, now I want you to pay attention to these rock formations right here in the distance. And I want you to compare my footage with the movie footage. You see how they line up? Take a close look. Next, I would like you to check the distance between those rock formations and this hillside right here where the trees are. Now, the reason why I want you to take a close look at this is because that would prove that the house had to be farther down this hillside here towards the water. There's a lot more trees that have grown in here now over the years. They must have been pretty close to the cliff there.
I'm glad I finally got a chance to visit this location. It's been a long time coming. Amazing stuff.
Mikey, come on. Our parents are worried. It's dinner time.
Here at Goat Rock Beach in Jenner, California, just north of Bodega Bay. Those police officers come riding along the beach on a couple of quads. And yeah, you see that rock, that large rock protruding up from the beach right there in the shot.
In the movie, this area is known as Cauldron Point. As you may realize by looking at this footage here, you could see they had to cheat this scene. Because where they are first seen pulling up on the quads, there is no way they would be able to then have the same view on the other side of the beach. There is a separation, and the separation is the giant goat rock itself. So they cheated this scene a little bit in order to make it look like it was one connected beach, when in fact there is a separation, and the separation again is the goat rock itself. Now that giant sea stack there got its name from goat herds that grazed nearby over 100 years ago.
And definitely not a tunnel's distance from Astoria, Oregon. So movie magic clearly plays a role here in this 1985 classic as well. You see all those rock formations in the distance emerging from the ocean, right offshore and along the shore. Right at the perfect time when I'm recording this footage, you have people emerging in the exact spot where the kids would have appeared. Special stuff right here.
Right there, that's actually Richard Donner on one of the quads, along with an assistant director of his. I bet you never noticed that.
Absolutely legendary. Now, as you can see, the parking lot area is a good distance away from here.
In this classic final scene where the parents are reunited with their kids, some of those people are actual parents and other relatives of the cast. There were a few deleted scenes for this movie, some of them absolutely ridiculous, but the one that is infamous is the one that is mentioned right here.
What happened out there? Were your lives in danger?
The octopus was boy scary. Yeah, it was boy dangerous.
And honestly, it's brilliant because it comes off as a child basically embellishing a bit about the adventure they just went on. It works out well either way. For people who don't already know, there was an octopus scene. It was pretty bad, and they deleted it. Going the extra mile for endearing little moments like this one is what makes this movie extra special. The movie magicians worked hard on this one. Chris Columbus, Richard Donner, and Steven Spielberg. How could you go wrong here? And this was not the first time that Steven Spielberg and Chris Columbus worked together. They worked together on Gremlins. And there is a big reference to that movie in this movie. When Chun calls the police station, there is a mention of green monsters that multiply when water is poured on them.
There'll be no more signing today or ever again.
Mary, Mother of God. Look at that.
All right, fine folks. Hope you enjoyed this one as well. You know I did. See you next time. The world's last blockbuster here in Bend, Oregon.
Another thing I want to quickly point out that was really cool, during this tour, I came across people from all walks of life and backgrounds, age groups, etc., who were all visiting the same sites that I was, all touched by this film at one time or another.